Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's September the 5th, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day, presented by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. Happy Labor Day, everybody. Hope you're having a nice day at the beach. I have a little bit of bad news. You will not see Negative Nancy at the beach with you today. She has been sent on a 30-day cruise around the Caribbean because there is nothing at all to be negative about after a 70-point outing to start the season by the Miami Hurricanes, unless you're just absolutely determined to find something to pick on. And then I guess you would express extreme concern at some of those individual plays that were turned in by the Miami defense against Bethune-Cookman. No argument there. And maybe, we had a post-game show after the game, and there was a lot of distress about the fact that Corey Flagg got so much playing time against Bethune. And, that's so unfair. I mean, if he was out there, this is the one thing I feel certain about. If he was out there over Caleb Johnson, the coaches had a reason for it. They are not playing favorites. They are not anointing starters for, that aren't earned. Mario Cristobal has made that clear. So if Corey Flagg was out there, and we all know he's challenged, we know the track record, no argument. But if he's out there, it's because he proved during training camp that he was the best guy to be out there Saturday against Bethune-Cookman. Still 2 weeks before they go to Texas A&M. We will see what happens between now and then. But Matt Shodell, you have to agree with me, my man. You have to agree that it's time to flip the switch in that crazy brain of yours and just be positive about what we saw out on the field Saturday.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you. Apparently, you've offered me a 30-day cruise around the Caribbean. I'm very excited. I don't know who this Negative Nancy is I'll be sailing with, but that's fine, man. I'll take the cruise. All I know is what I see. And what I saw when I parked my car at the stadium and got out was a fan who immediately looked at me and said, "Hey, you're Matt Shodell. Are you going to be negative after this one?" To which I responded, well, we have to see what kind of food they're serving the media in the press box, and then I'll have a better idea. No, what I actually responded was what I try to tell everybody, which I didn't tell him I'm negative by nature, but I am. But what I told him, and this is, if he posts on here, he'll tell you it's the truth. What I told him was that nobody wants to see Miami win more than me, which is true. And he responded, yeah, he says, I know you're just saying how you see things, and he appreciated it, which was a refreshing change from Mr. Gary Ferman's attitude towards me already this morning. So anyway, as it relates to the game, it was. I look at things differently than the average person. It was really interesting to me that watching that game, it was almost like just delete the 30 days of fall camp, because how they played that game was exactly how I thought they would be playing before fall practice started. And then fall practice starts, and we're like, oh my gosh, the receivers are a problem. The offense is getting crushed by the defense. The defensive line is amazing. The secondary is going to be the best in the ACC. The offense can't get anything going. The run game is awful. But if you would have asked me before fall camp and all these craziness, I would have said the offense is going to be one of the best in the ACC. The defense, you got some things to worry about there. A lot of transfers. How are they going to mix and match right away? The linebackers are a question mark. Show me and I'll believe it. It's so weird to me because 2 weeks into fall drills, I posted the message board. I'm like, I can't believe I'm saying that the defense might be better than the offense, right? And I just wish that they just did away with fall practice so I don't look like an idiot, because they look like exactly what I thought they'd be a month ago. Offense looked amazing, man. Amazing. That's exactly how you want an offense to look. I mean, did they and this was a vanilla offense. Look, we know Bethune's awful, okay? But that doesn't negate the fact there was no penalties on the offensive line. When's the last time, Gary, we saw an offensive line through any game against even Central Connecticut State that there was not a single penalty the whole game on the offensive line? I can't remember in the last 20 years that happening, okay? And forget the positives on offense and forget the negatives on defense because, there was 4 big hit plays against the secondary. Like, whatever, man. Bethune-Cookman scored, I think, 17 points against Alabama last year. Like, I'm not that worried about that stuff, okay? What my big positive is from this game, and people are going to think I'm crazy, but it was what I just said about the offensive line. And my second biggest positive from this game had nothing to do with offense or defense. It was special teams. Because we've seen special teams be like nothing special forever. I do the grading, the Canes, and Gary checks it afterwards or whatever, and he never adds anything because I'm always spot on. And special teams have always been like, a B or a C. The punter's, usually good. The kicker's usually good, but there's always a block in the back, holding, something stupid. Return to punt inside the 10, and maybe there would have been a bad grade when Keyshawn Smith took a punt. Was it a punt or a kickoff? I don't know. It was out of the corner.
Kickoff.
And I'm like, probably just let it go. Let it go out of the end zone or whatever. Probably don't return that one. But you know what? It's Bethune, and he did take it back for an almost touchdown. And yeah, there was a penalty on it, whatever. But in general, just having a guy like Keyshawn Smith, who he's not Devin Hester. Like Gary and I were talking about at the game, we're like, there was one return where he had a huge hole, and Devin Hester would have been gone. Keyshawn Smith was not gone, but Keyshawn Smith is fast enough. He read the hole. He went as fast as he could through it. He's a guy who can break long kickoff returns. Xavier Restrepo
against Bethune-Cookman.
Yeah, well,
their kickoff coverage was horrendous.
Horrendous. But you know what? We were putting bodies on people. We were doing things on special teams we have not seen. Forget the punting and kicking, okay? We were doing things on special teams, and we can't say coverage because we didn't punt once, but on special teams returns that we haven't seen that kind of effort, that kind of understanding. We need to create a seam and how to do it. We haven't seen that here in years, man. And I don't know if it's Marwan Malouf. I don't know who did it, if it's the whole staff. But like that, nobody's talking about that as much as they are, oh, what happened to the defense? Oh, this and that. Like the receivers didn't drop a pass. Well, special teams will win close games this year. They will win. And if they win 10 games instead of the 8 to 9, and I'm leaning towards 9 because the ACC is awful. If they win 10 games instead of 9, I think that 10th win, whoever it's against, it'll be a close game. Maybe it'll be against a Clemson. Maybe it'll, because they might lose a game they're not supposed to. Whoever it is, I think special teams will have a major role in this being a successful.
That's why you hire Marwan Malouf. That's why you do it. Yeah,
correct. Listen. I liked everything I saw because I'm not that worried about the secondary. Everyone can say, "Oh my gosh, DJ Ivy's awful." I mean, look. Someone in the press box said that DJ Ivy is Gervin Hall on steroids. And it might have been me that said that, and I shouldn't have said it. It was me. I'm sorry I said it. I really am, but I was trying to make a joke.
I think they're comparable. How about why not? Like I don't want I want us to be nice,
Correct. Which is why I said when I said it was early in the game, I was joking.
So let's say they're comparable.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a joke, but like guys like DJ Ivy, like you have to take your practice to the games. And DJ didn't do that. And DJ's a great player. He really is. Like he has all the ability in the world.
He has a lot of ability.
Translate it, not lose his head in a game. He will be one of the best cornerbacks in the ACC.
He struggles taking it to game day. I agree.
Right. And listen, and I've said it. I think I said on this show, like, the coaches are going to get tricked by DJ Ivy and Wayman Steed, where they seem like they're great practice players. They know what they're doing, but they're a step slower. They make a mental bust in a game at a key moment. And, I want to say I'm saying it in jest, but unfortunately we've seen it in the past. But I do think that it's really going to be interesting because I don't think the staff's going to give up on people. I don't think I don't think we've seen the last of DJ Ivy. I know there's people watching. They're like, we never want to see him again. Like, this is a college kid who has amazing athletic ability. He's fought tooth and nail for this team, which is why I probably shouldn't have made that joke in the press box, just to one person, not to the press box at large, okay? But like he has to overcome that, he has to overcome people saying he's going to be the next Gervin Hall who just is going to stop playing because he makes busts. Like he's got to get past that. And we're going to find out how good this coaching staff is. Because if we don't see DJ Ivy play a meaningful snap again, or if he makes another mistake in a game and he's pulled forever, like that, I don't think that's what the staff is. And I'm super curious as a microcosm of this team and this staff to see if they can get DJ right. Because if they can, like that's a great sign for the future. And this is the perfect game to see DJ and start a guy like that and start a guy like Corey Flagg at middle linebacker and just see, how he grades out. And we have the grades from yesterday.
Flagg graded out great. I mean,
I have no problem with the coaches only starting two, as it turned out, two of the transfers of the 12 transfers. I have no problem with that. People on message boards are complaining like, why are they starting the same guys that Manny Diaz started? You got to see what they can do, man, because these coaches weren't here last year. Like Gary said, they're going off what they saw in the spring and in the fall practice, and who had the attitudes, who did it right. And there's also something to be said, and Gary, you mentioned this during the game. Maybe they don't want Texas A&M to see who the starting lineup's really going to be.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. I mean, I think Akeem Mesidor will have more than 19 snaps against Texas A&M.
Well,
I feel pretty confident about that. But some of these grades, and I want to talk about some of them because some of them were absolutely stunning. And but I first want to talk about my day a little bit. You talked about your day. I want to talk about my day. So my day was great. Okay, it really was. I started out, I get to the stadium, and one of the first people I come across was this young man right there and his dad. Okay, and his dad is a subscriber to our site. This young man's name is Tobiah. Okay, and Tobiah is from Melbourne, and he drove down with his dad, and this was his first Canes game. And he was so excited and so happy. And we took pictures. I took pictures of him. He and his dad took pictures with me. We had a lot of fun and the whole thing. So I want to give Tobiah a shout out. Thank you for becoming a Canes fan. And I hope you brought a whole another generation of Canes fans with you there to Hard Rock Stadium yesterday. All right. Then went over and man, they built this massive recruiting tent. I should have probably taken a picture of it. I didn't. I took some pictures of some of the guys that were there, but I don't have the whole tent. I'll try to get it for you. Those of you out of town that don't get to come to the games, I will try to get a really good picture of that at this week's game. And so, I mean, the largest freaking tent you've ever seen in your life. That they built a structure to host recruits. And unless it was there for the Dolphins now, maybe they're just using a Dolphin facility. I'll have to check on all this. But to make a long story short, they had this massive tent and the recruits were coming. And it's an hour and a half before kickoff. And the entire coaching staff comes in golf carts and stuff to go visit with the recruits at this tent, except for the head coach. Head coach wasn't there. Then all of a sudden, you see the doors swing open at the main entrance to the stadium over it's like the 50-yard line on the home side. And here comes Mario Cristobal just walking through the crowd to go to this recruiting tent. I'm like, oh my God. Might not want to do that Florida State week, Mario. You can get away with this when it's Bethune and without getting ambushed for autographs and everything else. But the amazing thing was nobody bothered him. He just walks through comes through the where they're having the Fan Fest stuff and walks across the street. They have a perimeter road around the stadium, walks across the street to go up to this recruit tent and hang out for 15 minutes or so with the recruits and their families before going back into the stadium for pregame warmups. I've never seen a head coach do something like that. It was kind of cool, But I was thinking they have a worker in the football department, the longtime guy who's been there by the name of George Baez. That was his bodyguard, Matt. George Baez was Mario Cristobal's bodyguard walking through the public areas of Hard Rock Stadium. And so that was kind of cool to see. And then, of course, the game and, was nice. And I don't know why my screen is acting up here, but anyway, so that was kind of like a cool start to the day. And then of course the game was the game, and the guys were in and out so fast and so often. quite frankly, it was kind of hard for us to really get a beat on who was in the game and what we're evaluating and stuff. But, there were certain guys that you could tell obviously were great. I mean, Tyler Van Dyke, absolutely unbelievable. I thought Henry Parrish was great. I love that sequence where he was tired and he's trying to take himself out of the game. And Kevin Smith, the running backs coach, throws a temper tantrum on the sideline and tells him to keep his butt out on the field. And then the next play, he scores a touchdown. That was one of my favorite sequences of the game. Restrepo obviously played great. But there are some hidden things in these Pro Football Focus grades that you just say, wow. And I'm going to talk a little bit about somebody you mentioned a minute ago, Matt, and that was Keyshawn Smith, because, he had a couple good kickoff returns, and guys are running to the message board, and they're saying, man, maybe Keyshawn's our number one receiver. There's your number one receiver. And I know I've been talking about number one receivers all fall. So, of course, some of that is directed at me. And, I apologize for that. But, listen, I was very honest. I said, I don't see a number one receiver. Now, receivers played great yesterday. There was a Michael Redding sighting, which was amazing. But when you look at these Pro Football Focus grades, and remember, they grade every single play, and they gave Keyshawn Smith a 53.1 grade. He had 25 snaps, did not catch a pass. They gave him an abysmal, horrific 53.1 grade in yesterday's game. And kind of distressing, Matt. Obviously, we would have liked to see better than that. Restrepo, on the contrary, was 84.7. So you're seeing the disparity in how somebody totally independent is evaluating their performances. But your thoughts in general on the receiver group and how they did yesterday?
They got such flack in fall camp for some of the issues that we saw. It's just, look, grades do tell something, and I think a lot of college coaches will say Pro Football's Focus grades aren't very accurate because the person grading the film doesn't really know what the assignment was. So if you see somebody, for instance, just running a route, well, was that the depth they were supposed to, go to? You don't know as an independent observer exactly what they were supposed to do on that route for each receiver. So it is somewhat subjective, but at the same time, they can certainly take a look at certain aspects of the play. So, if someone gets a 50,
are they getting open?
Right. Correct. Yeah.
Are they getting targets?
Right. So if somebody gets a 53 grade versus an 84 grade, you have a pretty good idea just in general that the 84 grade played a lot better. You see Keyshawn Smith, like you mentioned, on the returns, and you wonder why can't he be more involved in the offense? He was on the field for 25 reps, not including the returns. So I guess probably 22, 21 reps. Which isn't a big amount to judge somebody by. And then, Restrepo, not including his punts, was probably, punt return was probably, 26, 27 reps. So I just think it's still to be determined. And these guys were so open for the most part. And Tyler Van Dyke had so much time to find people. You're not going to have a lot of drops when you're not worried about somebody being right on you that's going to smack you in the head, so to speak, as soon as you catch the ball. I think there was only one hard hit the whole game, and that was the one that Will Mallory held on to that I saw. So I think when you get a higher level secondary, we'll really find out what the wide receivers are made of then. But I think it was a good start for everybody. I really do. Like I said, was there a bust from some guys in the secondary? Yeah. There was. Were there times where the defensive line maybe wasn't as dominant as it should be against a team like the Twins? Yeah. But it's the first game, man. I was very happy with everything I saw, including the secondary. You just got to get out there and sort of run around and get your feet wet. And you can't be too harsh or too happy against a team like Bethune. But overall, I think they did what they had to do.
The offensive line played pretty well. Most guys graded out extremely well on the O-line. The only other one that really stood out to me was Elijah Arroyo's grade was almost as bad as Keyshawn Smith's. Now, why? We're not sure. He had 22 snaps in the game, did not grade out very well. I remember seeing him play H-back and liking what I was seeing there. I remember him catching a pass where, he looked fine. So I'm not sure what Pro Football Focus saw to give him a poor grade, but you guys can review all these grades on the website. We've got them there with the snap counts from the game. So, Matt, let me switch gears to defense because that's where I think most of the interest and concerns were. And a couple things stood out to me. Wesley Besaint only had 9 snaps. They gave him an 88 grade on those 9 snaps. Like, that is elite football. That means they think that Wesley Besaint was an elite linebacker on those 9 plays that he was on the field. So if that's the case, and the Miami coaches saw the same thing, Matt, then we might start seeing some more of Wesley Besaint out there.
I mean, you did just say 9 snaps, right? In the second
half.
But
nobody like most guys only had nine is a low number. I agree, but yeah, it's not a big sample size.
You can't tell much.
You're right.
You really can't. So I'm not going to go.
I was just kind of blown away by the number.
Well, I mean, they were all. Yeah, there was how many? There was. I mean, if you go down the list, there's probably 15 guys that were at 70 or above on defense. So yeah, I mean, overall, it was a pretty successful. There were some concerning areas, when you see Avonte Smith below 50, a 50 grade with 14 reps, that's not great. Keontre at 42.6% on 17.
Avonte Williams.
Sorry, did I say somebody else? Yeah, Avonte Williams.
Smith. Yeah, that was horrendous. His grade's horrendous.
Yeah, DJ Ivey, obviously, we know he didn't play particularly well, 55.3. Darrell Jackson, I was surprised he didn't dominate more. 57, Al Blades 58. Those are guys who are going to contribute this year.
Johnson Smith 42. He had that one really bad bust.
Yeah, but again, it's just hard until you go against a really quality opponent. It just sort of is who you're matched up with, how good you look sometimes. And it was Bethune-Cookman. So I'm not
James Williams. They liked the way James Williams played. They gave him 80.8. He had 40 snaps.
Yeah, he had a great interception. I mean, you can see him reading the quarterback. That was great.
Yes, that was great.
Yeah.
So all in all, Matt, a workmanlike performance. Obviously, when you win, when you score 70 points and win going away, that's a positive. But at the same time, I'm sure that Mario Cristobal is looking for every little thing in that game that he can grasp onto to keep these guys on edge and keep them competing in practice and, not let them get comfortable here as they try to build towards Texas A&M. But I think they got out of the game what they really essentially needed to, even though they struggled on some isolated plays on defense.
Yeah. Again, overall, I'm very happy. I mean, look, the only way I would have been unhappy in this game is if there were a lot of penalties and just a lot of mistakes. And they played clean. If the team's playing clean, they're athletic enough to beat every team in the Coastal. All they got to do is not beat themselves and make some big plays here and there. They're going to give up some plays on defense. It's going to happen. Anybody who thought that it was going to be like the greatest defense since 2018, or 2018 type defense, you're probably deluding yourself. It's still mostly the same personnel and defense as last year, and they added some transfers. Great, but the transfers are mostly backups for whatever reason, and that's okay, because it added depth. The defense will be better than last year. The offense looked great. I think overall it's a better team than last year. I think it's a better coached team than last year. It's a team that made fewer mistakes. So I just don't see any negatives at all, really, from the game, other than a few players who, didn't play particularly well, but will get better, including DJ Ivey, who I clearly, I know fans are probably going to be mad on here that I said that joke, but it was a joke after one play as a joke, and then he kept playing badly was the problem. But again, even a DJ Ivey he can be a great player. He has all the skills in the world. So that's why even the guys we mentioned having bad grades, that's not negative. It's saying, look, they have something to work on. And these coaches know what they have to work on. And now we get to see why these coaches are great coaches. That's okay. It's okay to not have a great first game as an individual. The good news is I thought the team overall really played a clean, good game. And I really liked in particular that other than the one spike ball, they just acted like they've been there before. You always say if you hit your first home run in Little League, act like you've done it before. Don't go crazy jumping up and down and making a big scene. Act like you've scored a touchdown before. Act like you've had a big interception before. Celebrate with your teammates and get off the field. Don't jump up on the bench and make Mario Cristobal go bust a blood vessel in his eyes, because you got a turnover. Just go back to the sideline. This is what you do. This is your job. You did your job. That's what was supposed to happen. You were supposed to make the tackle for a loss. You were supposed to get an interception. You were supposed to have a 70-yard touchdown because you're better than that other guy on the other side of the ball. That's how it was supposed to go. Don't act like it's a giant surprise. And oh my God, I got a 70-yard touchdown. I got to jump in the stands and whatever. No, That's the NFL because it's a show. College football is a business, man. Act like you're a business person. Get the job done. Win the games. Get in, get out. Make negative Nancy into positive Pat. I don't know. Is that a thing? And let's go.
All right, so we have a ton of coverage. If you didn't get to it over the weekend, you can go back and take a look. Obviously, tons of coverage on the game, analysis, stories, grades, 5 takeaways, columns, the Pro Football Focus grades. We had a post-game show that you could go back and listen to if you like with Dave Lamont, a veteran ESPN broadcaster who's working with us this season, and a lot of good stuff that you guys can soak your teeth into on the website today. All right, we've got a few also recruiting stories on the site today that I want to talk about. But first, let's hear from our friends at LifeWallet.
I know what you're thinking. Why do I get to star in my own commercial? Well, I was LifeWallet's first female athlete. So let me be the first to let you in on a little secret on how I've grown my NIL. Introducing LifeWallet Sports, a revolutionary platform giving athletes complete control over their NIL opportunities, connecting athletes to brands and businesses specific to their followers' likes and interests. And if that's not enough, this platform also helps athletes make connections outside their sports. So let's get connected on LifeWallet Sports. Take it from me, it's a hole-in-one.
I am willing to bet that Morgan Pankow uses more sunscreen than any University of Miami student. I mean, she is a golfer who's out in the sun a lot, but you would never know it, Matt. So she's got some secret sunscreen that she definitely uses. Anyway, all right, recruiting stories. We've got a few of them on the site today that we'll talk about. First up is 2023 high priority defensive back Damari Brown. He was at the game and he updates us on his status, as well as a little bit on teammates Brandon Innes and Mark Fletcher, Matt. And the rumors have been abundant on Innes and Fletcher that they are both very seriously considering being Miami Hurricanes. And even though they're committed to Ohio State, give us the latest on what you were able to find out in that regard.
Well, that they're both still committed to Ohio State, but that they're still, obviously, Miami's recruiting them hard. I mean, you can make stuff up, and, some of these recruiting people like to post on different message boards that, I'm hearing they're coming. I'm hearing that Miami's really making great strides. And this is just always this stuff. Every year this stuff comes up. I mean, how long we've been covering recruiting, it's just it's a process. You have to just wait. I mean, fans hate to wait. They want to know now, oh my God, there's a chance, they're leaning towards us or they're going to change their minds. Florida won. This is terrible news for us. We're never going to get any of the recruits that Florida wants now.
Well, what happened in Gainesville the other night was not good.
It wasn't good. But at the same time, a lot of these recruits aren't basing their decisions on Florida won one game and even if Miami lost the game. I know fans want to say, oh my gosh, we lost to whoever by 30 points. Now nobody's going to want to come here. That's just not true. So look, I'm not concerned. But yes, Mark Fletcher and Brandon Innes do not want to do interviews because Ohio State doesn't want them to say they're interested in any other school because that's how Ohio State runs things up there. And I get it. Right now, there's 3 programs, and there's the rest of the country. There's Ohio State, there's Georgia, and there's Alabama. And if you're ranked number 4, you pretty much suck. Okay. I mean, you could see from who was it, Oregon? There's another team in the top 10. I forget who it was who barely won. It's a huge discrepancy. And it's a huge hill that Mario has to climb. And Is it insurmountable? Absolutely not. But you do need the Brandon Inneses. You do need the Mark Fletchers. You do need all these top guys. So, will they get them? Again, I'd love to sit here and say yes, because I'm a positive person. But the reality is They haven't decommitted. If they really wanted to, they could open up their recruitment and go anywhere they want, including back to Ohio State. They have not done that. They've been scared to show up at Miami. They weren't at the opener because, God forbid, Ohio State hears anything. But Damari Brown's good friends with both of them. Damari says, hey, I talk to them all the time. Miami's recruiting them just as hard as me. They're talking to Miami. I think they're going to be coming to visit Miami with me. And we just have to let it play out. And guess what? If they do visit Miami, I would not be surprised if we as reporters, or we as people who cover recruiting, if they say to us, listen, we know we came to Miami. Please don't report it. Just like what Ray did. Ray, for how many times did he visit Miami? 4 or 5 times. And we'd always call him or text him and he'd say, listen, don't do me a favor. Don't breathe a word of it. Clemson gets all bent out of shape.
They were able to turn Ray around, so maybe they can turn these guys around.
Right. So, Gary, ask me if Brandon Innes and Mark Fletcher have visited Miami yet under the radar. Ask me.
Have they visited Miami yet under the radar?
No, I'm just kidding. I don't think they have.
No, I don't think they have either. All right.
But there will be a time when I say that. There will be a time where we go, no.
You mentioned Gainesville, and man, listen, what happened up there on Saturday for those recruits that were in attendance up there in Gainesville for that game against Utah? I mean, that was a rowdy atmosphere. They won the game in dramatic fashion. You gotta, we can acknowledge that the Gators, way more than Florida State, are becoming a serious battle for the Canes in recruiting this year, and they have gotten their act together over there since the Jaden Rashada situation, where Jaden looked like he was going to go to Florida and ended up committing to Miami. But there, guys like this Cormani McClain and some of these other kids, Andy Jean, for sure, he's committed to Florida. Miami is recruiting him, and Andy Jean did say that he will visit Miami. But these are going to be tough battles. I mean, and
Andy Jean is another one, by the way. Yesterday, and look, you know me, I don't like to get Jaleel Florence. I don't like badger the kids, but I called him, texted him a couple of times. Just hey, is it? Are you definitely visiting Miami? Just to make sure, And he said to me, he gave me one of those emojis that's just a blank screen. So I don't know what that means. What does it mean when you don't respond and you get the blank screen? I assume that means he's going to be visiting, right, Gary? Isn't that what that means?
I imagine. I mean, supposedly he is. I mean, he told some people connected to
I just wish he would confirm it. Just be like, yes, I'm definitely visiting. Just confirm it. I would love that, because you know how some of these recruits are. Oh, yeah, I'm going to visit, probably going to visit, whatever. It becomes a story about he's going to visit. And with Andy Jean, as we've seen, I don't think that he's one. There's always these recruits, nothing personal, it's just personalities, right? He's one of these recruits who sort of is never set in stone with anything. And Miami was his front runner. He's telling Miami, I'm coming. Oh, wait, Florida looks pretty good. I'm committing to Florida. And, Miami stops recruiting again. Miami gets annoyed. Miami starts recruiting again. Hey, we still love you. Please come back. Yeah, maybe, sure. You want me to visit? Okay, sure, I'll visit, But will he? He's one of these recruits where you don't know. There's a lot of recruits where when they say to you, I am visiting and here's my date, that I will be there, they're coming. Andy Jean could tell me tomorrow, I've set up Miami visit for, November, whatever. And I'd be like, okay, great. And I know in the back of my head, it's 50-50 if he will actually visit, just because that's how recruiting is with a lot of prospects. It's not a personality disorder like what I have. It's just how some recruits deal with recruiting, because it's hard to say no to a coach who's a leader, an icon in some cases, a mentor in some cases, because these recruits, guess what? They hear from these head coaches all the time now. That's like the thing. It's not just the assistant coaches. Like back in the day when can I tell my Jeff George story? I love that. That's my favorite story. The Jeff George story, Gary.
Keep it short.
So it's my favorite Art Kehoe story. So Art Kehoe went with who was the offensive coordinator back then? It was Gary Stevens, right?
It might have been,
yeah. They got this intel on Jeff George's father. That Jeff George's father doesn't want Jeff to go to Miami. It's over. You have no chance. Blah blah blah. So they're like, we got to do something different. We just got to shake it up and try to figure out how we get Jeff George to Miami. And so Art Kehoe, they're talking about in the car, and Gary says this is according to Art, and Gary turns to Art and says, you know what I'm going to do? You know what I'm going to do, Art? he says, I know that I was told, whatever you do not sit in Jeff George's father's chair. It's like some lazy boy recliner or something. They told me, they said, whatever you do, just don't sit in that chair. He says, I'm going to go in there and sit right in that chair. That's what Gary Stevens says to Art Keel. And sure enough, Art and Gary walk in, and Art thought Gary was joking. They walk in, Gary like runs and just plops himself right down in Jeff George's chair, in Jeff George's dad's chair. And Jeff George's dad like sort of looks shocked and just sits on the couch with everybody else, doesn't say anything. And Miami took control of that conversation. Like, that got Jeff George's dad.
But they didn't get him, Matt. They didn't get him.
They did not get him.
So that's not a winning recruiting story.
No, but it was closer than people think. It was close.
It was close.
Yeah.
But they didn't get him. And maybe
that put them in the game. Before that,
maybe it knocked them out of the game.
No, they had no chance before that. That's what got them in the game because they were impressed. It's like Miami, Miami's for real. They want to take control. They're whatever, Ask Art.
All right. We have a couple other recruiting stories today. We talked to Miami's LaSalle offensive lineman Frankie Tinalau. He is a Miami commit, but he continues to get pounded by Florida and two West Coast teams, USC and Oregon, because they are hopeful that they can convince him to go to school closer to his home country of Australia. So, we'll see what happens there. So far, though, Frankie remains a solid Miami commit. And we also catch up with 2023 Georgia linebacker Marcellus Pulliam. He is going to be taking a Miami visit. So be sure to check those out.
Marcellus.
Marcellus. That's what I said, right? Did I say Marcellus?
Yes, you did.
I butcher names. I'm not great with names. I admit it. Anyway.
It looks like Marcellus. It's just pronounced Marcellus. That's all.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's understandable.
Yeah. Especially for me, who screws up a lot of names. Yeah, it's like I admit it's a weakness. But anyway, so all in all, good weekend. Hope you guys have nice plans for your Labor Day today. We'll be working. We got to go out to the U. We'll be talking to Mario Cristobal today. We will be talking to both coordinators today. So we will have lots of new information for you guys on the website around the middle of the day. So no matter where you are, barbecuing, whatever, make sure you take the time to come back to CaneSport.com and see the latest on your Canes. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We thank you for joining us once again and starting your day with us here on Good Morning CaneSport. And we'll see you tomorrow, everybody.